Hey, good afternoon, NCLGISA.
Yeah.
Very good. And everybody. I'm Imagery with Mecklenburg County, working on the building with GIS. I've been with Mecklenburg 25 years next week.
Woo!
Yes, it's been quite a run. We never even heard the word drone when I first started. I've been with Mecklenburg County for 25 years. Done a lot of geospatial mapping, GIS, NCLGISA software, AutoCAD, done that. And one of the new endeavors we're now doing is, of course, UAV collection. And we're going to kind of go into that with this presentation. The presentation, I'm actually going to talk a little bit about why we did what we did as far as selecting a vendor and the past year of actually using that vendor, which is kind of where we're at. So it's a little bit about how to, for anybody that's interested in doing this. It looks like most of you guys are from outside the county. I see some familiar faces inside the county. I see Belinda and our IT folks over here. And it's obviously a pretty relaxed looking group, so if anybody has questions at any time, just go ahead and holler. The first question you should be asking is, am I going to talk for 2 hours about this? I am not. If I got to talk 2 hours about drones, then I've not done my job. The other person going to be helping me today is Brett Smith. He is with Charlotte UAV. They are a local company, and we'll kind of go into details about them and why he's here. Obviously, he brought the elephant in the room. So I'll start the presentation, and again, it's probably going to last 30 to 40 minutes, and hopefully if you got questions, throw them at Brett and I, because we would love to try to answer them. First thing is, I asked Brett, what does NCLGISA stand for? How long has it been an organization?
Over 40 years.
40 years, I thought so. I've done a presentation like 10 years ago.
You can come back.
Yeah. So, why we're here today. In this room about 2 years ago, actually, to be almost exact point, 2 years ago, Brett and his folks came in and gave a presentation to a lot of county and city, basically with water quality and engineering staff at that time. And I sat in the room 2 years ago and realized drones are coming, they're here. I don't want 40 people going to Brett and asking them to do 40 different projects. So I came up with an idea to go out for a service agreement to select a company to be our sole provider for Mecklenburg County for drone UAV services. I'm going to use those words interchangeably. Does everybody know what UAV and UAS stand for at this point in our world? Okay, no?
You can tell me.
Unmanned aerial vehicles or unmanned aerial systems, UAS. Because whereas we see them flying, we actually have a rover. Brett has a rover, just scoots around like an R2D2 unit. He has a boat now. He has an aircraft carrier. I don't know what else. But for those in Mecklenburg County, you'll get a kick out of this. So that was 2 years ago. We sat in this room. We had the presentation, opened a lot of eyes. But prior to that, 4 years ago, I actually, like everyone here, enjoy using UAVs, or they're a great hobby. But we came up with an idea to buy some for the county and start putting them to use for mapping purposes. I wrote a nice write-up of why we should do this. And who here knows Marvin? Him and Dina said, cease and desist. We don't want you buying UAVs. We don't want you buying these drones. We don't want you flying them. We're sure you're good at something, but you're probably not going to be good at that. They just shut it down. They said, we're not allowed to do it. So I still had the need to do it, and some of these slides will show you why we had that need. And then that's where we fast forward to 2 years. You see this presentation. After that, Mecklenburg County went out and solicited service requests, or RFQ for qualification-based services. That was in beginning of 2017, last year. We got 12 replies to UAV services from around the state. Some of them were engineering firms, survey firms. Some of them were videographers that just use it for like weddings, but they didn't. We didn't know what we'd be using this for, so they replied. We interviewed 6 firms. 6 very qualified firms, 6, most of them were engineering firms and survey-related firms. We interviewed one firm that built UAVs, trained people on UAVs, flew UAVs, and owned and repaired UAVs, and that was Charlotte UAV. One of the criteria we had when we were doing the selection was they had to be able to respond to a request that we had within 24 hours, like be here in Charlotte, ready to fly. They were one of the few companies that could do that. There was one other company that could do it, obviously, and I think you supplied their parts to them and built their drones. So it was an easy selection for us. We knew that Mecklenburg County GIS is fully functional. We have software to do all of the imagery that they collect. We can handle it. But what we didn't have was the ability to fly safely, to do it in a legal manner, and to do it as quickly as possible. So that's why we selected Charlotte UAV. I highly recommend their services for any other community looking to do that. In that 1 year, we signed a 1-year service agreement, and this year we just re-upped it. So we kind of started this time last year, and since then we've done 10 projects. They've been kind of small projects, and I'll show you what they are. It's not like we're going out and flying the entire county yet, but the projects have been useful, and so far they've been met with a lot of positive from our staff here. And we're going to be doing some additional projects soon. This is Charlotte UAV's, well, you go ahead and talk a little bit about this, but this is why we hired them. They're licensed, they're insured, they're safe. If they crash into something, it's on them. If Mecklenburg County or your own staff crashes into something, it's a PR nightmare. And that's kind of why why Dean and Marvin shut it down. So you can see all this. They're, like I said, they're very insured. We like that a lot. This is the building you're sitting in. This is Subtle Avenue. This is our traditional imagery collection process. We would take a plane, it would fly usually once a year, and it would capture obliques and aerials for the county. Does anybody else know who Pictometry or EagleView is? Okay, so we're all very familiar with them. Great company, very useful. We love them. We speak highly of them, but once a year is sometimes not enough, especially for this growing community that we live in. So this is an example from last February. We had Pictometry fly. There's the prop plane coming across the bottom. It takes pictures of Waverly Hall, which is here in South Charlotte. Waverly Hall is another big development that's going on. And it flew in early February. We got the imagery in May. We look at it, and here's what we see. A nice big dirt patch. Now the quality of that imagery is fantastic. Nothing wrong with that. And I want to talk a little bit about the quality, because this is actually an image flown by a satellite of that same area last week or 2 weeks ago. It's a great image, but what can you tell from these blobs here? I mean, we know that there's buildings in Waverly, but we can't map from those. So even at a satellite level, it's still not the kind of quality that we need to do our mapping or do any information derivative. This was flown by Charlotte UAV in November, so a couple months ago. It took Brett and his team 1 day to do the flight of Waverly. We were able to then take this and turn it into impervious mapping. We actually map impervious here in Mecklenburg County. Does any other counties do that, or communities? You know what I mean by impervious mapping?
Yes.
We charge a fee for it. I'm hopeful you do as well. That fee helps pay for a lot of our staff and our expenses that go down the road. So you can see, if you're looking back at the aerials, or if you're looking back at the satellite, the imagery that comes from these devices is hands down much better quality and very useful. Any questions so far? I'm moving along pretty fast.
What about impervious mapping?
Impervious mapping, good question. Impervious mapping is like rooftops, asphalt, anywhere water can hit and runs off into our storm system. We charge a fee based on square footage of that.
So who is your most obvious request for that information? Developers?
For the impervious,
Yeah.
well, we do the mapping in-house, and so we charge a fee based on it.
So you have a set amount of impervious surface that you can develop across, right?
No, there is the built upon area, but that's separate. Everybody from residential to commercial gets charged a fee in their water bill up once a month based on how much square footage you own on your property.
That's because of the load on stormwater.
Because of the load on the streams and the stormwater system, yes, exactly.
All right, so let me ask you a different question then.
No, go ahead.
Developer comes in, he's got 16 acres, he's gonna do RS40 there or commercial development, and he has a requirement to have a certain amount of impervious
Right.
and impervious. So he comes to you, you sell him that information.
We provide all of our information for free to them.
Okay.
So yeah, that scenario happens in certain parts of the county. What he's saying is let's say you have 1 acre, you can only build in certain areas, certain parts of that county, you can only build on half an acre. The rest has to be left alone. So yeah, we do provide that information to them, but that's not really the biggest call for this information.
So, and as far as a product that you hand him, what do you give it?
Us, it's GIS data.
Yeah.
Shapefile data. We have, and I can show it to you after the slides, but I'll show you a few things. We have, we call it an open data portal, but you basically go to this site, you do a search on anything, and you can download our data for free. We used to charge for it a long time ago, and now we provide it free, and usually it's updated daily or weekly, depending on the product.
Is that an Esri product?
It is mostly Esri-based, yeah. There are some other products that are different, but we do provide CAD, EWG products from AutoCAD users out there, and some other things.
This allows you to then collect taxes faster versus...
Wrong.
No.
Not taxes, a fee.
A fee.
We don't misinterpret that. Yeah, it's not a tax, it is a fee. But yes, it allows us to collect them faster. Real quick, what this is important is generally we fly in February, we get the aerial imagery in May. My staff maps it from May to December. By that time, areas have already been built and not charged a stormwater fee. So our stormwater lag has always been about 12 to 18 months. With something like this area or a quick trip, if you're familiar, the quick trip is all impervious. It's got canopy, concrete. They go in about 45 days. So we're missing that revenue from that quick trip for about 18 months. Our idea is to send these guys out, and that's what I'm actually going to talk about. We got about 4 quick trips actually that I want them to go fly real quick, we'll map real quick, and we'll be charging them their exact stormwater fee.
Just a quick question. What's the benefit of this over, the county or the city would have a development plan? And in that you can, when you approve the plan, at least that's how we already map out or, calculate how much impervious surface there's going to be. What's the
You're talking
difference?
about actual plans?
Yeah,
Yeah.
as built versus
We did
design
used to do
plan.
that. So the issues with that is for mapping from the as-built was, or not the as-built, but the plan,
Right.
is the as-built would change. So we would get the impervious wrong a lot.
Okay.
And we would end up having to go back and look at the aerials anyway, after it's already been done, and remapping it. So it was kind of a process that was a little bit flawed, so we just skipped it. If you're only doing 1 or 2 developments, big developments in your town or city or county a year, that's fine. But if you're doing 200, there's that catch up. All right, so Waverly is a monster. We could probably fly that once a week, and it would change once a week, and we would still be behind. This I kind of feel is important. Brett might not think so, but this is what it cost to have them fly Waverly. It was a 1-day project. They went out and flew it. It was $1,200. They gave us the aerial imagery. We used software. It's Esri's drone to map software. I can talk more about that if you're interested. And my staff literally this was within 4 hours of flight, we had a digital ortho on the screen and could map from it. And it cost $1,200. We feel that was a benefit because, again, that stormwater fee that area is generating once a month is probably a couple $1,000 a month. And the other thing is, if you're familiar with like traditional flights where you pay a small business, a mapping business, engineering business to go out and fly a plane, bring that film back, turn it into a usable data, it's about $7,000. So in this process, we saved $5,000, and we had it way sooner than anybody could even hope for.
Do y'all do the geo-referencing?
Yes, yeah, we do. So when he flies, he captures the location based on the GPS. So the software then reads all that, stitches the photos together, and creates an ortho for us very easily. We Drone to Map is an add-on to Esri software, if you're familiar with Esri, ESRI or Esri software, and it is probably the best add-on they've ever had. If you're familiar with Esri software, you haven't met me. It's easy to use. You don't have to be heavy-duty GIS geek to figure it out. It's actually very simple, and it's the same software as Pix4D, which a lot of you probably hear that Pix4D you could also buy. It's the same module, but this actually runs inside Esri. And if you already have a contract with Esri, it's $2,500 one-time fee, and you get the software. So,
Do you do any Pix4D for other entities within the county?
yeah, we have. You talking about other projects?
Yeah, like crash reconstruction?
Yep. Well, I haven't done that yet. I'll show you a couple here. Would love to do that though.
Okay.
So this is kind of this is my plug. We're GIS guys. We're sitting in our cube. We're not flight guys, but we can turn their data into some cool stuff. Just throw it at the GIS guys in your community or in your organization, and we can build 3D models. We can get data off those 3D models. And again, this is just a little drone to map how real simple. It's using Esri software. They capture the imagery. We're able to use it. It's been a good process, a good little handoff for each other. This is actually a photo of the drone to map. I didn't know, is there any GIS people in here? Okay, 1, 2, okay, good. It's, it runs on the ArcGIS Pro platform is best, if you know what that is. And it's very simple, very simple.
So are these waypoints that you're...
Oh, I'm sorry, those were image capture points, right? Brett?
Yep.
Yeah, those were actual.
You can see the automated flight plan you set there. The software calculates where it needs to take that picture based upon the front and side overlap. You plug into the software. It's fully automated. It'll press a button, it'll go up, take those pictures at each one of those locations, fully autonomously.
Yeah, so we really don't even need pilots anymore.
Yeah, so that's your pre-programmed flight plan?
That's
an example. That is not what it is.
That's where it's telling you it took the picture, but I didn't fly down.
No, this was just an example. This next slide is one that they've done for us. And so the first project we had was literally like 1 year ago this time. And it was from our Park and Rec group. Our Park and Rec nature preserves are very bountiful. And so what they like to do is prescribe burns every now and then to clear out space so that they don't have wildfires like other places. And this one was done last year. They wanted and you'll see in a second, but this was pre-burn. So this is a photo taken prior to the prescribed burn. And then we did, how many acres was it?
It's less than 30.
Yeah, it was 20, let's say 25 acres. This is an example. This is it. Over to the right is after the burn. To the left is before the burn. And you can see the areas where why they wanted to have an image capture, so they can actually see how they did with their burning. These projectors don't do too good a justice, but so what they did is they went out and captured this nature preserve area of this McDowell. And so the guys, the Park and Rec guys, can see how they did and kind of gauge where they need to do better or where they need to keep going. And this all turned around in like 2 days. I mean, they burned it. A week later, he flew it. A day later, he had it. He was pulling it up in his office and using it. This, when I go back, this whole entire area was captured with 400. It was almost 500 images that the drone captured. So those little points we saw in this previous one, there's 500 of these. And again, using the drone to map software, it took minutes to do for us to map it.
So does Esri do that flight path, or are you using another software to actually map it?
They use
We use Pix4D. Yeah, so I imagine Esri had some sort of mapping software. Does it?
I don't know if they have a pre-flight.
No, it probably uses DJI software,
Yeah.
then processes it.
Drone map might have a module in it.
Esri and Pix4D are,
Yeah,
they're coming together.
yeah.
how do you handle crab and tilt?
I tell them.
What was that?
I pay
Crab
them
and
to do it.
tilt,
Say that again?
crab and tilt, how do you handle crab and tilt? You know, where it might, the drone may fly
Right.
kind of at an angle, just like an airplane, or maybe tilt it a little bit.
Yeah, so we have onboard internal measurement units. Most of our stuff has redundant IMUs, and then RTK GPS, or at least GNSS GPS. So the aircraft knows it's steady, it knows its course. The only thing it's going to sway is maybe 3 meters left or right. That's just due to the sway in the GPS. As far as locking on target, the onboard computer's talking to the sensor. The sensor knows how much data it's capturing. So it's real-time adjusting itself. So it knows if it's not on the correct path, and it readjusts it so it locks on target. The only time it really comes off target is if there's more than like 30 knot winds. Otherwise, it's dead on aircraft, pointing straight down. If there's any wind, it's got a gimbal that adjusts, so it's always locked straight down.
And the other thing is, it's only like 200 feet above the ground, and it's taking so many pictures that overlap and get rid of the excess. If there is any little bit of, you just get the sweet spot of
So when you mosaic it.
yeah, when you mosaic, it's get rid of the junk.
I got another question for you guys. All right, as far as terrain elevation change, when you're taking those, when you're taking those pictures, you got elevation change. Let's say, for example, you've got 200-foot beam that you're shooting. How does your plan take into effect in that elevation change?
So prior to going on site, I'd look at the elevation change. I'd fly, my altitude would be well above that elevation change, so I'd make sure the aircraft's not going to run into anything. I usually, if we're doing the processing, we work with a surveyor who goes and marks ground control points on each, throughout the map. So if it's 30 acres, he'll spread 8 or 9 ground control points out at the various elevation changes so that we know we capture that. Our sensors are good enough that we fly at, say, 250 feet. It can capture sub-centimeter level accuracy across the entire map, regardless of the elevation change. So that's really what photogrammetry captures in detail, is those elevation changes, and it's just as accurate as LiDAR. It's just a heck of a lot cheaper. So does that answer your question?
Yes, sir.
So it meets North Carolina state specs, or it meets North Carolina
It does.
state specs?
Yeah, for the most part. And again, I should point out, this is a mapping grade, not survey grade.
Right.
What we're doing with them, please. So we understand it's not being signed off by an engineer or a PLS at this point. However, they do have subcontractors to some survey companies, and if the project requires that, we will do it. As of right now, we haven't done one that requires it.
So you have had any pushback from developers on that statement, I guess?
No, they don't. Kind of joking around. Development happens so fast, they don't care. As long as they get their permits and can start grading, they haven't had any pushback on that.
I guess just the stormwater fee.
Oh, the stormwater
Say,
fee?
hey, if it's
Oh, there's
not
pushback on
surveyed,
that, yeah. Well, sorry, I thought you were talking about the
I
minor
guess
survey.
your all's calculations then for the stormwater.
Correct, okay,
fee.
so not so much, it's funny you say that, it's not so much the commercial or developers, it's residential.
Sure.
We get a lot of pushback, we got a whole staff that's not to say staff, it's 4 people, but their job is to make sure that the billing and the square footage is accurate. Now, let's say you own a house, my house is, I got a driveway, a garage out back, and I have 4,600 square feet of impervious area. We build based on a tier system, so if you're 0 to 2,000, you get a certain fee, 2,000, 3,000, on up. And then anything over 5,000 is just a flat fee. We do get a lot of pushback from residential, and when they see our mapping and we overlay it on the aerial, you know, it's like, well, tell us what we got wrong. And they're usually just like, well, you pretty much got it right. I mean, it's not 100%, but every residence, every commercial has the option to provide us a survey of that property with the exact square footage, and we will charge that amount. I think that's never been done as many times as we offered it. So it's not survey grade, but it is considered mapping grade accuracy.
You can flat rate for all residential.
Yeah.
But for commercial, it's down to square footage.
Well, it's not flat fee necessarily, but it is tiered.
Right. Oh, no, we do.
Oh, you do, I'm
sorry.
sorry.
Yeah, my locality, we do a flat fee for all residential.
Right.
So you do houses, I can't do houses, so can't.
And we were like that up until 2009.
Okay.
At that point, we switched to charging everybody equivalent. The next switch we're probably going to do, is there still more people in here? Is we may end up deciding to do a percentage, your impervious based on your parcel size percentage. So if you do have an acre and you only have 2,000 square feet, the rest of it, you know, you get a different amount. You know, computers can do it. They can figure it out. One of the other projects we did with this had nothing to do necessarily with mapping. So, but you see why. Brett here had to go out and put waders on and walk a stream. We do what's called stream restoration projects here in Mecklenburg County, and we do a lot of them apparently because we use those stormwater fees to try to, you know, reduce flooding risks. For the record, it hasn't flooded in Mecklenburg County in over 5 years. Only did you get that? Just take that back to your And a lot of that is due to all of this that's been built. You know, we buy people out of the floodplain, so there's no properties in the floodplain. But one of the things we're doing is going through and we got to restore streams to a better, you know, clean them up, get the trees out of them, or, you know, make them meandering. I am not a stream engineer, so, but one thing that they do is the staff walks the streams and makes notes. All right, this. They turn those notes over to the engineers, the vendor, and they, you know, clean out the stream and do their work, and then you come back and you have a nice, you know, nice flowing stream that is able to handle floods. They decided to use the UAVs to go down the stream channel and collect all video, so that they can sit in their office and not have to go out, and, you know, they can sit in a room, like 3 or 4 of them, look at the video and make notes based on that. And that's kind of what we're going to show you here. This guy, you can talk about him if you want.
So we're just flying a Mavic that has shrouds, but we walked all 8 miles and flew this drone. I have a co-pilot who's watching me, viewing what's on board through the goggles on his head right there. We learned that it's quite difficult to fly in this type of terrain, but the data we collected was what these guys wanted. It helped show the erosion and just a mess at which some areas of the stormwater, I mean, they're just fallen trees, there's shopping carts, there's just all sorts of, I guess, issues.
So that's a video of them. That's a video of them videoing. And then I got the actual.
So Brett, when you go down a stream, obviously that's linear, but do you do a prescribed 360 degrees as you go down that path?
If there was an area that was of concern, that say that there was a major erosion or a huge tree that fell, we'd stop in that area and we'd do a 360 to collect everything around it. But primarily, we just scanned it from the same altitude, and then we changed our angle depending upon what we were looking at, but primarily it was from the same view.
So like if you had an oxbow or something that showed up there, would you just do one elevation,
Yep.
show the oxbow and go on?
Yep.
Yeah, not only did they capture the video, they did capture 204 almost altitude, you know, orthos for us to generate from it as well. So it was a pretty complete project in terms of aerial detail and then down to channel detail. And I don't know if you can tell, but the quality of the detail the quality of the video is quite exceptional.
But your stormwater people prefer, how far are you off the ground there, Brad?
7 feet.
Pardon?
7 feet.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. You don't want to be very high off.
No, they want to be down in it. I did talk to them recently, because this was done in the spring. We did three different channels, and I mean, they're enjoying the imagery right now, the video, and working with it. They haven't dived into it 100%, but they say it was very valuable, and they would 100% do it again. This work, if you don't mind me saying, how much it costs? I think it was about $3,000 per stream. So I think each stream was not quite 2 miles. Right? So it was, a lot of work for Brett. Not a lot of work for the GIS guy. I sat in my office, didn't do anything.
So how many times did the angry trees come get you?
We never had one unscheduled landing. This was actually a cool thing. We learned that with the Mavic Pro, you can actually do daisy chaining with 2 remotes. So I would be further down the stream. My co-pilot would be flying the aircraft. He'd hand it off to me, and I'd take control without actually having to do any type of switching. So I would manually take control. He'd hop out, catch up, and we'd daisy chain and just work our way through. But as you can see, there's certain areas that stop and require us to do some fine tuning to get through. But we had a great aircraft.
If you look at it, you can see the twigs on this.
Yeah.
The other key here for everybody that's not familiar with mapping is there are no leaves on the trees. You could not have done this in June or July.
No.
So we hatched this idea like last October, but we had to wait until all the leaves were gone. I think started maybe back in February. Maybe the last one might have been done in April.
Yeah.
Something like that.
And it would have been too hot for us to do now.
Yeah.
Well,
And it would have been a lot more snakes.
in the fall, though, you got all the leaves on the ground.
Right.
As opposed to
Right.
spring, all those leaves are gone.
No, this was a perfect example of a perfect timing, and again, they're happy with the product, and that's all I care about. But something Brett said there was another reason it's important to hire these guys. They just learned that the Mavic was able to daisy chain remotes, and that would have taken me 10 years to figure out probably. So we're happy to have them as a vendor doing this stuff. And I know everybody's thinking about buying one of these and doing stuff, but there's a lot more that goes into it than just buying a cool toy and putting it on YouTube. So this project was pretty much a home run. Some of the other projects we did had, again, nothing to do with mapping or GIS, but we did a thermal project. There, it is behind that one. Yeah. Here it is. This is a thermal image, so they can actually attach different sensors to these, the birds or UAVs. And what we were looking for here was water quality. We were looking for an illicit discharge. So it's areas where bad water is entering the stream that's not supposed to, essentially. The way you do that is you got to do it either at night, early morning, or it's basically night or early morning when the ground's at a certain temperature, and then the water that's coming out is a different temperature, so it shows up. They did this. The first one they did was not successful. I know nobody likes to hear that, but we didn't find any illicit discharges. The area you can see from this image, it's really difficult to tell what's going on. The professionals know what's going on, but it was not a home run, not a success. These guys realized it, we realized it. They ended up getting a different camera or another device and redid an area, and we did find like 2 or 3 illicit discharges out of
So
that.
is that agricultural or commercial? Illicit discharge, is that
It
agricultural?
could be any. It could be commercial or residential. And in this particular situation, there was residences that had leaking stuff into the stream. But I mean, commercial is usually the ones that are doing it.
So I noticed you had quite a few DJI videos, and they were like 2 gigs a pop.
Yep, they're big.
So you store those locally, and IT backs them up.
Great story here.
Must be IT guys.
Did you know Mecklenburg County got hacked?
Oh yeah.
You guys talk about that in this context?
First session.
Okay. So what we did is we knew there was going to be a lot of data, a lot of videos, so we bought huge hard drives, obviously, that's kind of go back and forth with these guys with the imagery and the videos. We were putting them on a server, and that server was one of the servers that got hit hard. So hard it was gone. It wiped it away. So we don't put the videos on the server anymore, just because it's.
So you just have them on local hard drive?
We have them on a local hard drive
If the
now.
hard drive dies, your data's gone.
Well, he has them too. It's nice to have vendors with backups. They have it, and that actually happened. We had a hard drive that, I don't know if it died or got deleted or what, but the actual video, and they had it. They gave it to us quickly. Again, they're local. They're 2 miles down the road. They're here to help. They're here to serve.
So Brett, does your bird, does it chunk those up into video chunks? How big, or is it one continuous file, or do you chunk those out in like a couple of gigs, or?
So depends on what we're doing. For the video stream, we did that continuous. So that would have been, if as long as we went. I mean, some of these are 4 gigs. Yeah, I mean that's just one continuous file.
It was a 10-minute video.
Yeah. So we try not to chop them up. It's a pain to do it that way. Just let it flow, let it record, and then you take out what you want in the editing process.
We internally are experimenting with some of the editing ourselves. GIS people think they can do everything. And generally we try, but editing is interesting.
It's a whole other animal.
It's a whole other animal. So we got one person that's playing around with it and see what he can do. But the videos, we did this video for Stream, but we did a video for the Stream Clean, which was an event we had where residents come out and they walk the stream and clean dirt out of it. It's a feel-good event. We actually did a promotional video and then used UAVs flying through the sky. And very Hollywood-esque.
Did the tree planting.
Oh yeah, we did the tree planting. That's a pretty cool video.
It's like Creek Restoration.
Creek Relief 17. Where we went in an area that we bought homes out of the floodplain in the past. We turned into green space. And this is, if you see in the background, that's actually a stream that has been restored. You can kind of see it's cleaned out, it's meandering. It's got, when it does flood, it does so naturally. And that's the goal here. And in the background, you see those white stakes to the left. They are not headstones, gravestones. Those are trees that are being planted, and they put them in those so that the deer don't eat them. Lessons learned: you plant 1,000 saplings, deer are going to enjoy it. And so yeah, all those are going to be a future forest right here in downtown Charlotte, a couple miles from here. That used to be homes and apartments that got flooded anytime there was some perspiration in the air. And now it's a completely greenway space now.
So Brett,
Is that near Durrell Apartments?
It is, exactly.
Okay, I would notice the backside of it.
Yeah.
So Brett, in your post, can you digitally zoom in and slow it down, speed it up, that kind of stuff?
Yeah, so we can film. This is filmed in 4K. So if you have ProRes, then yeah, I mean we're cinematography quality capabilities with just your commercial off-the-shelf drone now. One you buy at Best Buy is 4K. So yeah, you can film in RAW format. There's a number of different things we can do.
What's your post product?
What?
What's your product that you use in post?
We use ProRes.
ProRes.
Yep. And Apple's just the way to go, just because we're editing on an Apple.
So I'm curious because you said you did a 10-minute video of the stream. One of the videos was, I'm guessing, did you have to piece those together since you can't fly more than 30?
Yeah. So the entire duration of all those. Yeah. So what we did was we put them together, and then we took the GPS data from all those flights, and we actually overlaid the GPS location so that when David got his footage, he was able to say, oh, all right, this is this part of the stream. He looks at the map and he knows it correlates to where the video is.
So you can go right to it, yeah. David is the project engineer on that, these projects. Yeah, David, he would have liked to have been here today. It's out in the stream walking.
Those streams.
So yeah, the video has been fantastic. The thermal image was not a home run, but we're learning from it. Some of the other projects is these guys, so everybody wants to go buy a drone and put it to work, locally, but that's not the only thing that they're used for. We're looking at, they got a boat, a drone boat, I don't even know what you call it, drone boat. And it's a pretty big boat, but it can go on the water and it has sensors underneath it, so we can do bathymetric mapping. That's going to be important here in Mecklenburg County because there's this thing coming called the River District. The River District's going to be, I think it's going to be the state's biggest development. Tearing down trees and putting up homes and park or all kinds of stuff. And it's something we're concerned about because it's directly up against the Catawba River, and obviously anything that size is going to throw off some sediment. So the folks here want to know over the next 20 years, could we measure sediment and see if it's getting heavier and heavier as this development occurs. That's something, that would baffle me 5 years ago. You're like, well, how am I going to do that? Like, go out there with a pole and measure it? But this boat that they have can do that. So this next project that we're kind of looking up is maybe taking that boat and running across the Catawba River at certain points, Lake Wylie, Mount Island Lake, and seeing what the sediment levels are, and then gauging that as we go forward over the years.
Is that video or radar?
It's sonar.
Sonar.
So there we do single beam, I think it's called dual beam as well, and then we have side scan capabilities. We've done that for the Navy. We've built boats for the Navy. Primarily, they use them to scan the topography before the boats come in and drop the troops off. So that's where it was developed from.
So is it a torpedo up under the edge of the water, up under the boat, or?
It's just basically, if you're driving just a regular boat and you have your fish finder,
Oh, yeah.
it's essentially the same thing as a fish finder. Same footprint.
So, a couple years ago, if I did end up getting that drone from the county and I flew it a couple times and maybe sounded like a success, I still wouldn't have been able to, use a boat to do this bathymetric. And they also have, that thermal image. That device they had to rent, I believe. And that's a very expensive piece of equipment. That's expensive. We want to do the capability of LiDAR. We know what LiDAR is. We love LiDAR here in North Carolina. I'm not sure if you're aware of that. LiDAR is basically elevation data, or mass point elevation data across the Earth's surface. We turn it into all kinds of useful information and pretty cool stuff. If you're ever interested in it, we got a couple guys here that are really enjoying it. But that LiDAR sensor costs extra, a lot extra, and I can see, I spent $2,000 to buy a UAV, but now you can spend $20,000 on a sensor. Do you give me permission? That's not going to happen. So having these guys with that equipment, it's a no-brainer in my book. Some of the other future projects, I like this screen because it's something that's important in times of disaster, hurricanes, flooding. I don't think we're going to get volcanoes here, but other people are. We internally are building like a damage assessment tool for GIS, and you can use it. You can use it on your iPad, phones, whatever, PC, surfaces. The tool doesn't matter. The device doesn't matter. But what it is basically somebody can go out there and say, all right, this is damaged property. I can take a picture of it. But we can also hire these guys to go out and just fly a UAV over a damaged site immediately and turn that information into usable data downstream. So I think that's going to be an important aspect. I hope we don't try it out anytime soon, but some communities have already been doing it, and they know it's a powerful tool. What else do I got? Oh, I was going to show off some of Brett's stuff from his website. I feel this is the shameless plug. I'll do it for him. Here's some other things they can do. Obviously, data collection is part of it. You see the thermal imaging. This over here, I believe, is a LiDAR product. If you look to the left, LiDAR derivative. We got aerial photos. There it is in Charlotte, City of Charlotte. Cinematography, of course, with NASCAR. These guys do some work for race teams. There's Charlotte, of course. Some of the big keys are what we can do is we can do it fast, we can turn it into a usable product, we can turn it into a return on investment, that's a big one. And all of it is just from these devices that we're going to have to get used to, one way or the other. Does anybody have potential projects that I haven't thought of, or Brett hasn't thought of? 'Cause we'd like to hear different ideas of what they can be used for.
We had been using them, at least a couple of years ago, for like a water tank, cell tower inspections, kind of mapping out cell towers that either lease out or have some sort of an agreement with. Yeah, just making sure, hey, what people are putting on the tower, still what's on the tower, what we have a record of, what our water tanks look like from above, as opposed to just, from the ground.
So the water tech things are very real because they have to be inspected like once a month sometimes in some communities. And to get up there and climb and do all that data collection, it puts people at risk, it's time consuming. But you can have a UAV go up and fly it for like 30 minutes, and then you have basically a brand new inspection every month and a record of that. I've heard a lot about water tanks. We don't really have too many water tanks in Charlotte, but there are a couple.
You said you used to do that. Now, how come you don't do it anymore?
We're not licensed.
Okay.
So several years ago, we kind of, we're looking at the rules and regs and that sort of thing. So there's kind of this gray area around governments using them for our own purposes. And then, just last year, the year before, it was much more clearly defined. I said, no, you're going to operate as under the commercial umbrella. We just, so we never got certified or
You saw was there value there for you?
Certainly, yeah. Like I said, even just, we have a couple of wireless internet service providers in our area that we lease space to. They're not always very good about telling you when they want to swap out or add equipment to your tanks and towers. Hey, where did the structural analysis come from that you want to start adding these 4-foot dishes to all this stuff? And so,
especially those towers, they throw on equipment if you're not looking there.
Yeah.
Sneak something on there.
It doesn't take much. Hey, we just attach this whole bunch of this stuff to this handrail or to the ladder or to whatever. You may not see it you may not ever see it.
Right.
And until you go to mount your own equipment on it, it's like, oh, hey,
Less space.
it's mine.
So one of the things why I'm doing this presentation is because Mecklenburg was one of the first local governments to outsource this type of thing. And it's been a success for us. I mean, I've not had to worry about them crashing. I've not had to worry about my analysts or technicians going out and getting in trouble or doing the wrong thing. I mean, we have a project, we send it over to them, they go do it, and the project shows back up. It's been a win-win. The more I talk to my counterparts and you guys, I don't know why more communities aren't hiring a vendor to do it, and you have vendors for everything in government, and these guys are just one more, useful vendor out there that we can utilize.
The first time that we were flying our Phantom 4 up to do what we were hoping a quick inspection on one of our cell towers, we crashed it. And so I'm looking at the guy that's flying the thing, and I kind of see the bird out of the corner of my eye, and all of a sudden it just takes like a hard right turn straight into the tower. What we ended up figuring out, I guess, afterwards is the equipment that was on it was 2.4 gigahertz, same frequency as what you're controlling. And yeah, fortunately, DJI kind of hooked us up, and we didn't have to pay to replace the entire thing.
Oh wow, really? That was nice of them.
So I mean,
They
$200.
did it for you?
No.
Yeah, $200 for the replacement or to change the parts out or whatever we ended up getting back, refurb or something. And maybe they saw that. Oh yeah, because we had to upload the log to them. Oh yeah, there was maybe some interference that maybe should or should not have been going on. Yeah, oops.
That's good that it proved to be in your favor. Usually the logs prove otherwise.
Right, yeah.
Well, you can see, I mean, he brought one of his devices here that they pretty much have built themselves. You've got the base parts, you can explain it.
Yeah, so this we've dealt a lot with the commercial off-the-shelf units. As you see, this guy hitting a DJI product, but
Don't be that guy.
It's built in China. It reports data back to China, so all the video pictures you take essentially are going back to China. We do a lot with government, DoD, and then critical infrastructure where they don't want China to have their data. So we've developed an 85% American-made. We do all our carbon fiber molding. We do a lot of 3D printing for rapid prototyping. But this one in particular is for a military operation. This has a mechanical release bay. It's got 2 of them. So we can put, let's just say, index cards in each one of these bays. Our software allows the user to pre-program a route, tell it where it wants it released, and this thing will take off automatically, go to its target, drop whatever it is they're looking to drop, return home based upon whatever parameters are set by the user. But we do this in Charlotte. We do all the manufacturing in-house. The one things we're missing, American-made, are motors, and then speed controllers are still manufactured in China. But we've developed this technology in America, not us in general, but just Americans did. We're about 10 years behind Europe in terms of application. They're delivering blood. I heard a gentleman talk about, delivering hospital supplies. They're doing that. They've been doing that for 5 years. They're doing package delivery. They're doing beyond line of sight. So it's really, regulation's been the tough part in the U.S. to deal with, and I think why Andy, like Andy said, why aren't more people doing this? I think regulation and just the media in general portraying these things as negative spy tools when they're actually a tool to help collect data and allow you guys to do your job better.
What's the maximum payload on that fighter?
This is 25 pounds. 25. Yeah. We have one that's 150 pounds. So this is our medium size. We have a bigger X8 that can carry a person.
Is it based on motor size or prop size?
Both.
Both.
Yeah. Yeah. So the bigger the motors, these are U8 motors. We have U13s. So we go to 36-inch props. These are 28-inch props. But it'll have 8 motors, top and bottom.
Yeah, I'm not sure, but this is a regional meeting. So these guys are all local to Charlotte. I mean, his office is just a shop right around the corner, and it's pretty neat to go to. I've done it a couple times. They got like 3D machines printing stuff, that look like alien spacecraft, obviously. But they got, well, tell them about the kid. Tell them about the new kid, the 18-year-old.
Oh yeah, so he's like, I saw you guys online, but there was a little kid flying, so I don't think it was you. And I was like, yeah, that's our head engineer. He's homeschooling, looks about 16, but yeah, I mean, I think he's in his senior year of college, but he's 18, so he's pretty bright.
Brent, just from a stormwater engagement, obviously that would be a springtime thing. How much lead time would you need to, predict, or, if we could schedule a stormwater specific stream restoration project or that kind of thing, what kind of lead time do you need for that?
A week or two, just notification and planning purposes. Usually if it's with, you guys do a lot of planning prior to, so if we could be, involved in just one or two of those meetings prior to, just so we have a better idea of what you're trying to accomplish. That's all we need, but we're on demand, so if Andy called me, I could still fly today if he asked me to fly, so.
We asked them to do something last November. It was Thanksgiving week, which the government usually shuts down. Most places do. But we asked them on Tuesday, and they're like, well, I don't have Thanksgiving dinner until about 4, so I can do it Thursday morning. So, they're pretty accommodating for us. Is this him?
Yeah, he's our test pilot too, so when we were first...
I don't know if anybody can see him. He pops in here for a second.
Yeah,
I think he was still wearing diapers, right?
yeah, everyone asked, is that your son, or? Yeah, they were out testing. This is at the Knight Stadium. Safest
Is that
place.
this exact place?
That's where this is. Yeah.
This one?
Yeah.
So we're not flying it inside. You can see this flying.
Former Knight Stadium.
Yeah, former Knight Stadium. But this one, when we first started, it was kind of shaky, so they're working out the shakes in it. So he's got a ground control computer. As he's flying it, Luke, the young guy, is telling him to make adjustments to the onboard computer. So he's making adjustments, trying to tune out that jiggle in the flight. And what we found out is this is just too beefy for the payload we were carrying, which was nothing. So this technically needs to fly with 5 to 10 pounds of payload for it to really fly. correctly. Otherwise, it's like a barking dog. It's like a really beefy car that's just idling and wants to go. Where do you guys test at now? Same place.
Same way.
Yeah, Fort Mill. I don't know, this one, I don't know if this is Fort Mill, I can't
It
tell.
said Fort Mill at the beginning.
Did it?
You mentioned signing a service agreement with Charlotte UAV. What process did you go through? I mean, I know you talked about the interview, but like once you decided.
So yeah, we had a group of various county departments represented in the interview process. There's, I think, 5 of us total, and one of them was from our procurement group. So he was in the interview, he didn't know anything about UAVs, or didn't, but then he ended up writing pretty much the service agreement that we crafted when we selected them.
And that laid out rates and.
It laid out rates, but most of it was the legalities, stuff I don't understand. I'm certain if anybody wants it, I'm certainly willing to share it with you. If you want to kind of carbon copy it, it's probably a good idea. But it was a 1-year agreement, and so at that time we did a 1-year agreement of we couldn't exceed $50,000. And I don't think we exceeded $50,000, but it was kind of a loophole. Maybe I shouldn't say this, but it was $50,000 for the Louisa department. It didn't mean other county departments could spend $50,000 as well. But we did. I think we probably approached maybe $40,000.
Yeah, it was like 43 or something.
Yeah, it wasn't quite 50, and I don't expect it to jump up a whole lot. One thing though that Brett has talked about, or his counterparts that we were talking about, is maybe just a flat fee of like 100,000, whatever projects we have gets covered. I don't think we're there yet. No offense, but I mean I could see.
Right.
You can see in a couple of years, yeah, to just having this kind of level of ability and service at your fingertips.
Prior to that, did you put out some sort of request for?
Yeah, we did.
Interest,
We did an RFQ.
Okay.
And I can share that with anybody if they'd like it. We actually got. This is the first time ever we got investigated by Engineering and Survey Board of the state of North Carolina. I didn't even know they did that. I've been doing this 25 years.
They weren't happy.
They weren't happy. Basically, he actually interviewed me. As I found out, I don't know if I should be saying this live, but one of the people that interviewed that did not get the job turned them in. Turned us, and obviously he interviewed, or the guy investigated, and he's like, they did everything exactly the way they were supposed to, and selected.
Sure.
So, but yeah, that was part of it too. You learn and you move on.
Your company, Flatbird Smith Industries, right?
Yeah. You have an LLC.
We're DBA, sure.
Yeah. Yep. So, I said I wasn't going to take 2 hours. I didn't lie. Any other questions, thoughts?
When you do your planometrics, are you capturing LiDAR at the same time?
Well, so no, we don't necessarily do planometric mapping anymore. We do aerials, and then we map off of it internally from Mecklenburg, building outlines, impervious, street center line, that sort of stuff. Planometric mapping we kind of focused or shifted away from because it's so expensive. It does require certification and all that exactness. But we use the state's LiDAR right now. The state had a great LiDAR captured in 2017 from Mecklenburg County. I'm doing a talk on that next week about that LiDAR. But,
Every 3 years?
Every so many years, correct, yeah. And what we kind of hope to do is, you don't necessarily need your whole county to do some LiDAR projects, but we hope to have these guys test like a stream that we need to do LiDAR on and see how that kind of compares with the state's Geiger LiDAR. If you're familiar with that, it's what we actually got from Harris Corporation. Very intense data, probably the most intense data I've ever seen or used. And it does take up a lot of space on your servers. I'm sorry.
No, you're good. I didn't even know that was up.
Getting a little overboard. Yeah, so that was our talk on UAVs and drones and kind of why we hire these guys or we have them here available. I recommend the same process be done. We couldn't be happier. you know, even if you select somebody else instead of UAV, at least you know it's being done properly. Any other questions or thoughts? Cover everything? All right. Thanks for having us today. Sarah, thanks for setting it up. If anybody's got any questions,